Most people live their entire lives outward, chasing validation, arguing to be right, speaking just to be heard, but silence is not absence, silence is presence, and in that presence you discover something rare, power without noise. We live in a world that tells us to always do more, say more, chase more, but let me ask you, what if doing less, saying nothing, and simply focusing on yourself is the fastest path to getting everything you've been chasing? Because the truth is, when you shift your energy from the external to the internal, your life begins to rearrange itself, the chaos outside starts to settle, the people who don't belong begin to disappear, and the right ones, they start to appear. Focusing on yourself means taking full responsibility, not for the world, but for your own peace, your own habits, your own mind. It's a quiet revolution. You stop broadcasting and start building. You stop reacting and start observing, and when you do this long enough, something incredible happens. Everything falls into place, not because you forced it, not because you spoke the loudest, but because you finally aligned with who you were always meant to be, free from noise, rooted in truth, and unshakable in silence. So if you're tired of the noise, if you're tired of explaining yourself, if you're tired of chasing people, moments, and meaning, try this. Be silent, be still, be focused, and watch what happens. Your silence isn't empty, it's full of answers, and when you learn to listen, life begins to speak. Would you like this formatted as a script for a video, or expanded into a longer motivational talk? When you stop reacting to the noise outside and turn your attention inward, your path becomes clearer. This is not just a nice-sounding idea, it's a principle that transforms lives. In a world flooded with opinions, trends, expectations, and distractions, most people are tuned into everything but themselves. They're constantly plugged into other people's drama, other people's standards, and other people's timelines. It's no wonder so many feel lost. They're walking through life using someone else's map. But something remarkable happens when you choose to shut the world out for a while, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You begin to hear the one voice that has always mattered, your own. This isn't about ego. This is about alignment. When you give yourself the time and space to simply be, without performing, without proving, without pleasing, you begin to notice things. You notice what energizes you and what drains you. You notice the lies you've been telling yourself just to fit in. You notice how often you compromise your peace just to keep the illusion of harmony. This kind of awareness only comes through focus, inner focus. Not multitasking, not reacting, not scrolling, but focusing on what's happening within you. And as you do, something subtle but powerful takes place. Clarity begins to emerge. Decisions that once seemed complicated now seem obvious. People who once confused you start to reveal who they really are. You no longer beg for signs because you've become your own guide. Your intuition, once drowned out by noise, starts speaking in a voice you can't ignore. The reason focusing on yourself works is because it returns your energy to its rightful owner. So many people spend their days scattering their energy, arguing online, comparing themselves to strangers, overthinking conversations, chasing approval. All of that is energy leaking out, energy that could have been used to build, to grow, to heal. When you focus on yourself, you're saying, I'm choosing to invest in the only thing I can truly control, me. This doesn't mean you don't care about others. It means you understand that real care begins with self-respect. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't show up fully for others if you're constantly abandoning yourself. Focusing on yourself fills your cup. It teaches you boundaries. It teaches you how to say no without guilt and yes without fear. And over time, it teaches you to recognize who's walking with you because they love you, not because they need something from you. There's also a kind of peace that comes with this internal focus, the kind of peace that doesn't depend on other people's moods or society's pace or even life's unpredictability. It's a peace that lives in the space between your thoughts. It's quiet, it's deep, and it's yours. And from that peace, you begin to act, not react. You respond to life with intention rather than emotion. You're no longer driven by fear or scarcity or comparison. You're driven by purpose, by clarity, by your own inner truth. People may not understand your silence at first. They may think you've changed, and in a way, you have. You've shifted from being externally defined to internally directed. And while it might feel lonely at first, it's the kind of solitude that grows you, because in that space, you finally realize clarity was never out there. It was always within you. It was just waiting for you to stop, listen, and come home to yourself. The moment you start focusing on yourself is the moment everything else begins to make sense. Not because the world changes, but because you do. And when your inner world becomes clear, your outer world begins to reflect that clarity. You don't need to control everything anymore. You trust that what's meant for you will come, that what's not meant for you will fall away. And that peace isn't something you chase, it's something you choose. So don't be afraid to retreat, to turn inward, to focus solely on yourself for a while. That's not selfish, that's sacred. Because when you focus on yourself, everything else, not instantly, not magically, but surely, starts to fall into place. Remaining silent doesn't mean you're weak. In fact, silence often signals the presence of deep strength. We live in a time where everyone wants to speak, where being loud is mistaken for being right, and where constant commentary is seen as confidence. But the truth is, real power doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't react to every insult or chase every argument. Real power is quiet because it is secure. Silence gives you control. When you're silent, you create space, space to think, space to feel, space to observe. That space is sacred, and in that space, wisdom grows. You start noticing what's really being said behind people's words. You become more attuned to energy, body language, and intention. While others are busy making noise, trying to be heard, you are listening, fully, deeply, and intentionally. And in that listening, you gain an advantage. You learn more by watching in silence than by speaking without purpose. When someone insults you, when life provokes you, when people misunderstand you, your silence is not surrender. It is strategy. You don't have to react to everything. You don't have to defend yourself to everyone. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. Some battles are designed to drain you, not grow you. Silence is how you conserve your energy for what truly matters. It is how you protect your inner peace from the chaos of the outside world. There is a discipline in staying silent. It takes maturity to bite your tongue when your ego is begging to speak. It takes wisdom to recognize that not every moment demands your opinion. It takes strength to know your truth and not feel the need to shout it. Silence does not mean that you have nothing to say. It means you are choosing when and how to say it. It means you are not ruled by impulse, but guided by intention. And this silence is not just external, it's internal too. There is a kind of silence that lives inside you when your mind stops racing, when your heart stops chasing, when you are no longer tormented by the need to control everything. In that silence you find peace, not the peace that comes from everything being perfect, but the peace that comes from knowing you will be okay regardless of what happens. That kind of silence is rare, and it is powerful. In silence you reconnect with yourself. You hear your own voice again, the voice that got buried under opinions, expectations, and noise. You remember who you are, what matters to you, what you truly want. And when you're clear on that, nothing can shake you. You become rooted, grounded. You stop looking for validation because your silence has already confirmed your worth. People may misinterpret your silence. They might think you're distant, arrogant, cold. But what they fail to understand is that your silence is not about them. It's about you choosing yourself, choosing peace over performance, choosing presence over noise, choosing to listen instead of react. And with time, those who are aligned with your energy will begin to understand They will appreciate the calm you bring, the depth you hold, and the focus you maintain. The world will always try to pull you in 1,000 directions. It will tempt you to speak when you should be still, to react when you should observe, to prove yourself when you've already earned your place. But the greatest power often lies in restraint. The loudest person in the room is not always the strongest. The most visible person is not always the wisest. It is often the one who waits, watches, and chooses their moment carefully that holds the real influence. So don't be afraid of silence. Don't be afraid of being misunderstood. Let people wonder. Let them guess. While they're busy trying to figure you out, you're building, healing, learning, growing. Your silence is not the absence of action. It is the foundation of it. It is where clarity is born. It is where your next move is formed. And when you finally do speak or act, it will carry the weight of all that quiet strength. Silence is power, not because it hides you, but because it prepares you. It refines your focus, it sharpens your awareness, and it teaches you that you don't need to be seen or heard to be powerful. You only need to be still, be clear, and be true to yourself. Growth begins within. Before you conquer the world, you have to first conquer yourself. Before you lead others, you must learn to lead your own mind, your own emotions, your own impulses. This is why self-mastery always comes before any lasting external success. You can accumulate money, status, and attention, but without inner control, all of it is temporary. True success, sustainable, fulfilling success is born from discipline, self-awareness, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing who you are. Most people chase success outside themselves. They look for validation in achievements, applause, or other people's opinions, but all of those things are unstable. The applause fades, the compliments stop. The trophies collect dust. What remains is who you've become in the process. That's the part nobody can take from you. That's the part that determines how long you can actually hold on to what you've earned. Self-mastery means understanding your patterns. It means recognizing the ways you sabotage yourself, the habits that drain you, the stories you tell yourself that keep you small. It's not always glamorous. It's often uncomfortable because to master yourself, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to face the parts of you that you'd rather ignore, the laziness, the fear, the ego, the excuses. You have to hold yourself accountable even when no one else is watching. Especially when no one else is watching, and that's what makes it powerful. While others are waiting for motivation, you're building discipline. While others are chasing quick results, you're laying a foundation. You stop reacting to life and start responding with purpose. You begin to operate from intention, not impulse. You don't just do what feels good. You do what is necessary. That shift is what separates those who rise temporarily from those who rise and stay there. The more you master yourself, the less you need to control others. You stop blaming the world for your problems. You stop waiting for someone to save you. You realize that everything you're looking for, confidence, peace, clarity, it's all an inside job. And once you access that level of ownership, life begins to change, not because circumstances magically improve, but because your mindset does. You see challenges differently. You stop fearing failure. You treat setbacks as teachers instead of enemies. You start to move with calm and confidence, even when things are uncertain. That kind of inner mastery also allows you to stay grounded when external success finally comes. Because let's be honest, getting what you want is one thing. Being able to handle it, stay humble, and keep growing after you get it, that's another level entirely. If you don't do the internal work, success can overwhelm you. It can feed your ego, blur your vision, and leave you more lost than you were before. But if you've trained your mind, if you've built yourself from the inside out, then no matter how high you rise, you'll always remain anchored. People often think they need better strategies, more resources, or the right connections to succeed. And yes, those things can help, but none of them matter if you haven't mastered your mindset. A weak mindset will sabotage the best strategy. An undisciplined mind will waste every opportunity. That's why the most important work you can do isn't what people see, it's what happens in private. The choices you make when no one's clapping, the habits you keep when no one's watching, the promises you keep to yourself simply because you said you would. There is nothing more powerful than a person who has learned to govern their own thoughts, emotions, and actions. That kind of person doesn't need to scream to be heard. Their presence alone speaks, their results speak, their discipline, their peace, their consistency, all of it speaks louder than any words ever could. So if you want true success, start with self-mastery. Start with the way you think, the way you respond to difficulty, the way you treat yourself in your quiet moments. That's where the real transformation happens, because once you've built that foundation, once you've earned that strength within, everything else follows. The career, the relationships, the impact, all of it becomes a reflection of the work you've done in the shadows. That's the truth most overlook. The real victory happens long before the world ever applauds. It happens within. By stepping back and observing rather than reacting, you gain the advantage of calm in the middle of chaos. In life, there will always be noise, conflict, pressure, unexpected changes, people pulling you in different directions. Most people get caught in that noise. They react instantly to everything: an insult, a delay, a rejection, a failure. Their peace is constantly being stolen because it depends on things they can't control. But peace isn't found in controlling the outside world. It's found in controlling your response to it. When you stop reacting and start observing, everything shifts. You begin to see the situation for what it really is, not just how it feels in the heat of the moment. You stop taking everything personally. You stop rushing into decisions fueled by emotion. You give yourself the gift of space. Space to think, to understand, to choose your response with intention. That space is where maturity lies. That space is where your power lies. Most people think they need to do more, say more, or fight harder to maintain control. But the truth is, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Not out of avoidance, but out of awareness. When you step back, you create room for clarity. You allow things to unfold without forcing them. You give yourself the time to align your next move with your values, not your fears. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop letting every little thing disturb your peace. You begin to understand that not everything deserves your attention, your energy, or your reaction. Some situations resolve themselves when you simply refuse to add more chaos. Some people reveal who they are just by watching how they act when you don't engage. There's power in silence, power in stillness, power in being the calm presence in a world that's always in a hurry to react. In the stillness, you become aware of patterns. You start to see what triggers you and why. You recognize emotional habits that no longer serve you. You see how often you've confused urgency with importance or emotion with truth. That awareness gives you freedom. You are no longer controlled by what happens to you. You are guided by how you choose to interpret and respond to it. This kind of detachment doesn't make you cold or disconnected. On the contrary, it allows you to engage with life more fully and more consciously. You're not avoiding your emotions, you're owning them. You're not suppressing your thoughts, you're examining them. And in doing so, you start to understand yourself on a deeper level. You become your own anchor, steady in any storm. People may try to provoke you. Circumstances may test you, but when you've built that inner stillness, you're no longer easily moved. You can listen to criticism without breaking down. You can experience failure without losing your sense of worth. You can face uncertainty without panicking. That level of composure is not about pretending everything is okay, it's about trusting that even when things aren't okay, you are. You realize that not every fire is yours to put out. Not every battle is yours to fight. Sometimes your greatest strength is restraint. Sometimes your best answer is silence. Because when you step back, breathe, and observe, you often find that things were never as urgent or threatening as they first appeared. Your calm perspective becomes your superpower, and over time, people begin to notice. They see your presence, your clarity, your peace, and they're drawn to it. They begin to respect the fact that you don't react to everything, because that shows strength. That shows you are in control, not just of your words and actions, but of your entire emotional state. And that kind of control is rare. That kind of peace is magnetic. So the next time life tries to pull you into the noise, remember this. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to chase every answer, fix every misunderstanding, or explain yourself to everyone. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is take a step back, breathe, observe, and let things play out. In that detachment, you don't lose yourself. You find yourself, you find your calm, you find your clarity, and you begin to understand that peace was never about avoiding chaos. It was about learning how to stand still in the middle of it. Every word you speak, every thought you entertain, every reaction you choose, it all costs energy. Most people don't realize how much power they're giving away until they're drained and wondering why. It's not always the big things that exhaust you. Often, it's the small, constant leaks, pointless arguments, meaningless distractions, unnecessary explanations, emotional overreactions. All of that is energy spent, and if you're not careful, you'll find yourself pouring your strength into things that do nothing to move you forward. But when you begin to conserve that energy, something powerful happens. When you stop explaining yourself to those who don't really want to understand, when you stop reacting to every little thing that irritates you, when you stop trying to prove your worth to people who have already made up their minds, you begin to regain your power. You begin to feel it returning to you, not as aggression or arrogance, but as quiet strength. A strength that's directed, focused, and intentional. There is a kind of clarity that comes with holding your energy. When you stop scattering it across 100 meaningless places, you begin to concentrate it where it matters. That concentration is what builds momentum. It's what allows you to be present, effective, and grounded. It's what allows you to build things, your mindset, your habits, your goals, without burning out or becoming lost in the noise. In a world that constantly demands your reaction, your silence becomes a declaration of control. It's not silence born out of fear or insecurity. It's the silence of someone who understands that their energy is sacred. You start to think twice before you speak, not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand the weight of your words. You don't jump into every conversation or respond to every criticism. You choose your battles. You act not out of emotion, but out of clarity, and that's where your power multiplies. This doesn't mean you become cold or distant. It means you become deliberate. You no longer waste your energy trying to be everywhere, please everyone, or respond to everything. You realize that energy is your most valuable currency. Every time you give it away to something meaningless, you have less to invest in what truly matters, your growth, your goals, your peace. And the shift is not just mental, it's physical, emotional, even spiritual. When you stop giving your energy to drama, stress, or overthinking, you feel lighter. Your body feels calmer. Your mind becomes clearer. You begin to tap into a deeper version of yourself, one that isn't running on anxiety or approval, seeking, but on purpose. You start showing up in a different way, calm, centered, powerful. There is something undeniably powerful about a person who knows how to hold their energy. Someone who doesn't waste time explaining what doesn't need to be explained. Someone who doesn't take the bait of every provocation. Someone who knows how to pause, reflect, and then act with precision. That kind of person doesn't need to shout to be heard. They walk into a room and their presence is enough. Their calm is felt, their focus is respected, their silence speaks louder than noise ever could. When you conserve your energy, you also begin to attract different experiences. You start to align with people who respect your peace, who don't require constant explanation or performance. You start to find opportunities that match your focus, not your frenzy. You move through life with a kind of flow that can only come from discipline, and the best part is, you stop feeling so drained all the time. You no longer feel like life is happening to you. You feel like you are choosing your path, every step of the way. The more you practice this, the stronger it becomes. It's not about becoming passive, it's about becoming precise. It's about knowing when to speak, when to act, and when to simply hold your energy and let things unfold. Because not everything requires your input. Not everything deserves your reaction. And when you finally understand that, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of overgiving. So hold your energy, protect it, channel it, and watch how it begins to build something powerful within you. You don't need to shout to make an impact. You don't need to argue to be right. You don't need to chase to be seen. When your energy is focused, aligned, and rooted in purpose, the world feels it, without you ever having to force it. When you stop looking outward for validation and turn your focus inward, something profound begins to happen. The chaos around you no longer defines your sense of peace. The confusion, the noise, the distractions, they lose their power over you. You no longer feel the need to measure your worth by how others see you, how fast you're moving, or how much recognition you receive. You begin to realize that your peace, your growth, and your happiness are not something to be chased. They are cultivated from within. Most people go through life reacting to circumstances. They let situations determine their mood. They let other people's opinions shape their identity, and they allow every twist and turn of life to dictate how they feel about themselves. This is why they feel constantly unstable, because they're basing their inner life on outer events. But the moment you shift your focus from the external world to your internal state, everything starts to align. You begin to lead yourself instead of being led by life. This kind of shift is not loud or dramatic. It's quiet. It's personal. It starts in small moments, when you decide to reflect instead of react, when you choose to listen to yourself rather than seek approval from others, when you respond to pressure with patience instead of panic. Over time, those moments add up. They create a new foundation, a deeper sense of self, a more grounded presence. When you focus on yourself, you become more aware of your patterns, what energizes you, what drains you, what triggers you, what truly fulfills you. You stop copying what others are doing and start designing a path that feels right for you. And as you walk that path with intention, you begin to experience something incredible: alignment. Things start to fall into place, not because the world changes, but because your relationship with it does. You stop chasing what you think you should want and start attracting what is genuinely meant for you. Opportunities that align with your values show up. People who respect your boundaries and energy find their way into your life. You begin to experience more peace, not because life is perfect, but because you are. Not perfect in the sense of being flawless, but perfect in the sense of being whole, connected with who you truly are. This doesn't mean everything becomes easy. Challenges still come, life still tests you, but now you're responding from a place of clarity and confidence, not fear or insecurity. You don't crumble under pressure because you've built strength in silence. You don't get lost in comparison because you've defined your own version of success. You don't need external noise to validate your path. because your inner compass is strong, and this is the quiet magic of focusing on yourself. The more you do, the less you need to explain, the less you need to prove, the less you need to impress. You begin to embody the peace and purpose you've been seeking all along. You become rooted in your truth, and from that place, everything aligns. Your decisions, your direction, your relationships, your results. People often think that focusing on yourself is selfish, but in reality, it's the most generous thing you can do. Because when you become whole within, you stop projecting your wounds onto others. You stop demanding from people what you haven't yet given to yourself. You show up to the world with more presence, more patience, more authenticity. You lead by example, not by force, and that ripple effect is powerful. So when things feel messy, uncertain, or overwhelming, remember this: the answer isn't always out there. It's in you, the clarity, the strength, the direction. It all begins with focus, not on what others are doing, not on what you can't control, but on yourself, your thoughts, your actions, your energy. Because when you focus inward and stay silent long enough to hear your own wisdom, life responds, not immediately, not always in the way you expect, but faithfully. Everything starts to fall into place when you stop chasing and start aligning. When you stop broadcasting and start listening, when you stop forcing and start flowing, that alignment brings you peace. That peace brings you power, and from that power you move forward, not frantically, but purposefully. Not to prove yourself, but because you already know who you are. In a world that's constantly demanding your attention, your voice, your reaction, it takes courage to turn inward. It takes discipline to stay silent when noise surrounds you, to focus on growth when distractions call your name, to walk your path even when no one is clapping. But that is where real transformation lives. That is where clarity is born, strength is forged, and peace becomes unshakable. This isn't about isolating yourself. It's about realigning with yourself. It's about choosing presence over performance, intention over impulse, and self-awareness over validation. When you focus on yourself, not selfishly, but with purpose, you begin to lead your life instead of being led by it. And when you stay silent, not because you have nothing to say, but because you've learned that peace is louder than noise, you begin to hear the wisdom that lives in your stillness. So walk quietly, but carry clarity. Grow silently, but let your results speak. Protect your energy and place it only where it builds you. Because when you do that, when you stay grounded, focused, and true to yourself, life responds. Doors open, the right people appear, the chaos clears, and piece by piece, moment by moment, everything begins to fall into place.